Hello guys, and welcome to another machine walkthrough with S1REN from Offensive Security. Today we're going to be doing a machine available on PG Play called HAWordy. And without any further ado, I'm just going to swap my sources here and hop over here. You can see in Cherry Tree I've already got my IP loaded out here. I've started the machine in PG Play. And we're going to actually copy that IP and export that as an environment variable. So export IP, as you go to this. Let's assume that there's port 80 running. We'll export the URL to be HTTP, this IP on port 80. And we'll say /fuzz just to prepare ourselves for maybe any wfuzz that we might do. So we'll clear this out and we'll do an nmap -p- for 65,535 ports. Full TCP port coverage. Then we'll do -sc for simple scripts, -sv for service version. We'll perform this scan on our target IP and tack on --open. What that's going to do is tell nmap that we're only interested in the open ports. I'm going to hit the return key and then I'm going to pause the video and unpause it once the nmap output is done, and we'll get it loaded into Cherry Tree. Okay, so I've unpaused now. It looks like the machine is up, but of all the ports that we scanned, it looks like only 80 returned to us. So we're just going to copy up through here, and what this tells us that if we're getting into this machine, it's going to be through port 80. So let's just quickly, since it's only one port, let's just get that under nmap results. Let's do a little bit of highlighting just to stay consistent. We have Ubuntu as the target operating system, and it looks like the default page of It Works. If I ever see It Works, I know exactly. I get an image in my mind of that Ubuntu Apache 2 default page. So if this was pulled down, then we know we're definitely going to be doing, that just tells me, we're going to be doing some directory busting, some fuzzing, to be able to do some discovery. Which brings me to my next point. Instead of community suggestions from our stream here, I'm just going to have attack and enum vectors. And I'm going to put down port 80, and we're going to say HTTP as we normally do. And that's the only port we have. That's fine. Often that is, quite frankly, often I have come across many machines in real-world engagements where it is just a machine serving port 80, and that's plenty acceptable. So we're going to do, checks for robots.txt. We're going to do checks for, we're going to do nicto, wfuzz, for directories, if I could spell today, directories and files. And without further ado, let's just go ahead and get down to it. So now that we have everything exported, you'll recall that we exported, let me blow this font size up for you. There we are. That should be more legible. We have the /fuzz here with no trailing /, so we're going to test for files first. I have a command called common. I'm going to copy over my fuzz command for files, paste it here, and we'll go over. This is wfuzz. We're going to say wfuzz, we want color in our output. The input source type is going to be a file here, and then it's going to come from opt/seclist discovery web content raft medium files.txt. And then we're going to say --hc with this parameter basically means we're going to hush the response code of A404. And we're going to do that on our URL environment variable. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit the return key on that. And I'm going to pause, and then once that's done, we'll go over the output. I am going to unpause for a brief second because I came across info.php. What I want to do, while we're doing this, we might as well take a look. So let's go ahead and open up, let's say, well, this would execute the web browser here. Let's just open up a new terminal, and I'm going to call upon Firefox. We're going to open up Firefox, and we're going to copy and paste our IP address of the target machine into it. And I want to see what exactly that info.php is. Info.php sounds like a PHP info file. But if we go to it, we notice that it only gives the target IP, which is pretty peculiar. If we were really interested, what we could do is start testing this for, say, fuzz equals some data. We could try alpha, then we could try numeric, and we could check for hidden parameters on this type of file. I don't know that there are any hidden parameters. That's something that we could check out later, but info.php is certainly interesting. So let's hop back over to our terminal, and I'll just minimize this. Here we are. And we have all of our results back. I'm just going to save myself time and exclude those 403s. We're going to copy it, bring it over to Cherry Tree, and we're going to say testing for files pretty much yielded all of this. We have an index.html, which we just know is the default, but something more likely is that info.php stood out. So this is an intentionally vulnerable machine. We must recall that. And if all we have is an index.html and an info.php, maybe there is something beneath the surface. Let's start testing for directories. To do that, I'm just going to use the same thing here, except I'm going to re-export my URL to have a trailing /. Notice this trailing / here. Sometimes mod rewrite can be enabled, in which case this won't matter particularly, but I try to stay consistent and add that trailing / when doing manual testing, just in case. So we'll do that, and then we're going to change our word list from raf medium files to raf medium directories, and still excluding 404s. We don't want erroneous responses. And let's hit the return key and see what we get. So JavaScript, okay, icons directory, WordPress, nice. So we found a WordPress directory already. I'm going to load that up in the browser, and let's see what we get there. /WordPress. Ignite Technologies, just another WordPress site. It's looking pretty default. Welcome to WordPress. Doesn't look like there's much custom content here. This is all default comments, probably and default content and material. So what we're going to do is we're going to be taking a look at the plugins of this, the users, and any potential themes. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead, since we're getting to the scraping part, I'm going to Control-C this to escape out of that. And it looks like the only code 200 that came back was WordPress. I'm going to put that underneath files, or actually directories, excuse me. And we're going to highlight this in bold. This is our current attack vector. This is what we're interested in. As my old red team used to call it, this is the juice. This is the juice. So what we're going to do is follow that juice. We're going to re-export our URL to stay consistent with what we're attacking as /WordPress. The next thing I always talk about in my videos, in my streams, is to stay consistent with the tools that we use and using the right tool for the job. So what we're going to do is we're going to utilize WP scan. I'm going to exit out of this, and I'm going to make a few modifications. I don't need to have disabled TLS checks on right now. We're not going through 443 or SSL. And let's see here. --URL, enumerate. What we're saying is -- enumerate plugins, -- enumerate themes, T for themes, and -- enumerate U for users. And we're going to say do that verbosely. I'm actually going to drop the plugins from this just for demonstration purposes. And let's see if we can collect any users and themes that might be outdated. And then we're going to have a separate one just for the plugins, because that's something we always want to remain cognizant of in our engagements against WordPress. We have admin and arty. Cool. So I'm going to nano my users file. I'm going to type in admin and ARTI, I believe it was. AARTY, excuse me. AARTI, right here. right here. I've selected it. So, and just as a reminder, I do have hashes, passwords, users, a directory for vulnerabilities, a directory for files that we might pull down for enumeration purposes. And what we're going to do from this point forward, now that we have some users, is we're going to enumerate out just the plugins. So I've included a -v to be more verbose in my output. That just says, hey, WP scan, I'd like a little more verbose output. And we're going to say -- enumerate P for plugins. And let's see what kind of plugins we get back. WP scan, directory listing enabled, at WP content /uploads. I'm going to make this very clear. I'm going to copy this link address. And we're going to bring this over. This is something that I did want to bring up. There are two primary directories when dealing with WordPress that as a penetration tester I'm really concerned with. And it's going to be the uploads directory, and it's going to be that's going to be in WordPress, whatever the URI would be for that, I should mention, /WP content /uploads. And the other one is going to be /plugins, WP content /plugins. Now we're not going to get a directory listing back of plugins. We're not that lucky. So the only way to really determine which plugin is here is to do that with a little bit of almost intelligible brute forcing. So that's exactly what we've done with WordPress, or WP Scan, excuse me. That's what we've done with WP Scan. And let's check out the results. It came back, it did some brute forcing of that. We got Mail Master, Reflex Gallery, and an exclamation part next to it. This is good for us. We've found something. The version is out of date. The latest version is 3.1.7. Okay. So we have that, site editor, slideshow gallery. My goodness, there's a lot. In fact, there might even be quite a few vulnerable plugins here if anyone was so inclined to take a look and come back to this machine. But I'm going to put this under other for now. All this WP scan information. Nice. And we got the links there ready to go. The one I'm interested in right now is the one that's telling me with an exclamation point that it's out of date. That's probably the best way to start with so many vulnerable, potentially, I just assume vulnerable nowadays, but to be honest, if I see an exclamation point like this, I'm prioritizing the lowest hanging fruit, and that's what we got here. This version's out of date, and we have Reflex Gallery. So that is definitely what we're going to search for. So what are we going to do from this point? If you guessed searching the exploit database, you're correct. We're going to clear all of this out. We're going to search exploit. Let's copy exact Reflex Gallery. Yes, and paste it here. No results. Well, that's because we're very keyword based with search exploit or the exploit database. So if we just get rid of the hyphen and put in the word reflex plus gallery, anything would come back that includes those words. Sure enough, we have a 3.1.3 arbitrary file upload. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this is. Let's go to vulns, and I'm going to remove that. But what we're going to do is I have a little script called bring me it. And I will cat that. In fact, let's cat ben bringmeit.shell if any students would like to take a look. All it does is echo copying vulnerability to current directory, and it copies user share exploit db exploits $1. That is to say the first argument of the script. And that's just a useful script for me to bring it to my current working directory no matter what, to save time and to be efficient. So we're going to clear out of this. And we have 36374.txt. Now, what we have here is a path, a proof of concept image, and the exploit itself. I can tell you that since this is a file upload vulnerability, we're just going to be interested in this. So let's just clear everything out and copy that, the exploit or proof of concept itself, and let's touch offsec.html. We're going to nano offsec.html and just do a little bit of HTML here. HTML, head, /head, body, /body, /HTML. And then inside this, we're going to paste our payload. Now, this payload is definitely catered at local 127001 on port 1337. That ain't going to work for us. We're going to change that because our target is port 80. And let me hop over to Cherry Tree and grab that IP address to make sure we're consistent. And that looks good. Nice. So we got that in line. WordPress, WP content, plugins, Reflex Gallery, which is what it found when it was doing that brute forcing. Admin scripts, file uploader, php.php. I'm going to copy this link. Instead of doing anything so much, I'm just going to copy the address. There it is. And we will hop over to Firefox, and I want to demonstrate something. This is a file upload vulnerability. There's something a little bit off about this, though. If we visit this, error, no files were uploaded. Okay, that might be because we didn't select anything. But we will notice something. I'm going to say Firefox offsec.html. Now here we are. Browse. And I'm going to go to transfers. This is my own little directory that just contains a lot of payloads, quite frankly. Web technology of PHP. And here's my cmd.php. And I'll go over what the contents of that are. Let's go to my transfers directory, cd to PHP. Enlarge the font a little bit. You may hear my cat in the background. I do apologize. He is a talker. A massive talker. But we have echo pass through $under get cmd. So we're getting the cmd, or we're gonna be using get data of cmd, and whatever we pass it is going to be executed as pass through. And we're also encasing all of this output in HTML preserve tags to preserve the output and almost make it look monospaced like a terminal. So that's what we want to upload, but we're going to notice something goes wrong here. And it has to do with the link that I visited. Let's notice file uploader, php.php. We have the year equals 2015, and let's say the month equals, let's say 5, the 5th month of the year, still nothing. Let's try it. We hit poon, and it says success. 2015 03 cmd.php. That's interesting. Let's go to the uploads directory. I do see that it was able to create the directory. So if I want to bring this to your attention, though, if this was not able to create the directory and then 5, or what was it, 03? Yeah, 3, the 3rd month, which would be March. Here's our CMD. That's great. And we're going to revisit that. But I want you to come back here to see something a little more important. This is a directory listing. And because this is an uploads directory, we can think from a Linux perspective that we have write permissions as www data to this. And the more important part that we notice from this is that if we weren't able to create a directory or anything like that, we could go inside one that was pre-existing. So 2021, month of 11, let's modify our payload real quick. Nano offsec.html to be, let's say, 2021 and month of 11. And this will work, but I just want to go ahead and make sure that we're clear as to what kind of vulnerability this is and how it's working. So browse, I upload cmd.php, we go ahead and submit that post data, and it's able to upload to 2021-11. So in the event that the file upload vulnerability didn't actually go and make a directory in the coding logic because nothing was there or something, we would run into errors. And that is, I just want to say, you know, that's not the end of the world. As long as we have an existing directory, pre-existing or known directory, with, in this case, it takes a year and month from the uploads directory of WP content, then we'd be just fine, as long as we take that into account. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and take a look. You may hear my stomach grumbling, but 2021 11 cmd.php. Nice. Let's go ahead and add on question mark cmd is equal to ls space dash lsaht of the root file system. Cool. So we have the entire root file system right here. And because of that preserved spacing, it just looks really nice and it's very accessible. Nonetheless, we have code execution on the target machine. If I confirm that with cmd equals who am I, we're www data. Pretty cool little web shell that we have here. Let's go ahead and get a real shell. So, we're going to do this. I'm going to type rev shells, which is just a little bash alias that I have. I'm going to copy this, and we're going to do some modifications. We're going to need our IP address. Since we're connected to a VPN, we're going to type ifconfig ton0, grab the inet, copy. I'm going to exit out of this terminal. And I'll say on port 1. You heard me right. Port 1. We're going to do this on port 1. And we're going to wrap the whole thing in bash-c. This is just a good habit to get in when delivering payloads, is wrapping your payloads to prevent numerous errors. And then the last thing we want to do is copy all of this. The whole deal. Copy that. And we're going to use, I use MayerWeb, but we're going to say, if I type in, yeah, it's a URL encode decode, and I just hit encode. Control A, Control C, Control W, and this is our payload. Wrapped and URL encoded, normalized, and ready for transit. I'm going to set up a netcat listener to listen net LVP, that is listen verbosely, on port 1. And we're going to go here, paste in our payload, hit the return key, and we've received a shell on port 1. Cool. So we notice that we have no job control in this shell. That is to say, we can't really do much execution. Is Python here? I don't believe so. Let's try that again. Yeah, no, it's not. What about Python 3? Python 3 is present. That's good. I'm going to utilize my breakout command, and I'm just going to go ahead and use Python 3, and I'm going to go down the list. This time, less explanation. I'm going down the list and showing you how quickly we can achieve a stable shell. Done. So we now have a completely stable shell in color with the proper environment variables and a terminal set to xterm 256 color. If we also hit Control C, that means we can drop into a binary, let it execute. If it hangs, if it doesn't work, our shell won't hang, and we can escape out of that or terminate that, and we won't lose our shell. So a very stable shell in that sense. Now what we're going to do is go to the home directory, and it looks like we have a user named Raj. That's cool. Let's go to, oh, and flag 1 is there as well. We have our local flag. That's certainly some points. What about .mozilla? Permission denied. I did go over what we would do if we were the user Raj in a previous video. If we were successfully the user Raj, we might be able to extrapolate users and passwords, plain text, from that Mozilla directory. With that being said, though, let's take a look at the web root. So we know we have WordPress. Okay, everything is looking fine here. Let's cat the wp-config.php and see if maybe we can get something out of this. Let's see here, scrolling up. It looks like the database user is Raj and the password is 123. Can we switch user to Raj with password 123? No, authentication failure. What if we do mysql-u raj-p123? Or let's actually just go for input 123. Sure enough, we're into the MySQL database. Let's type show databases. We have sys, WordPress, PHP in a normal machine. I would go through all of these. There are hashes that are going to be in here. Let's just at least get to the point where we would have the hashes. Let's say use WordPress. Database changed. Show tables. WP users is the one we want. We're going to select all from WP_users. And sure enough, we have those nice hashes. Admin, and this is MD5 WordPress just by looking at it. But we could always identify it with a separate tool. If we come across a hash, I use either hash ID or hash identifier. So hash identifier, I paste it in, and it's saying, yep, for sure, that's MD5 WordPress. If we wanted to crack that, there might even be another way to root. Who knows? But we're going to go ahead and exit out of this, and we're going to continue our enumeration because that's not the escalation that I would like to demonstrate. Let's check any world writable directories. var temp, nothing of value here, nothing too exotic. Temp, dev shem, nothing. Let's cat etsy stab. Are there any exotic mounts with extended user attributes? Does not look like it. Read write user no auto. Exec. Let's type mount. Nothing we could mount either. Okay, something worth maybe looking into though. Let's take a look at the Etsy directory. Is there anything here that was not created by root or root shadow? Well, we have root or root LP in this case because that's just cups. The answer is no. Let's check the password or the permissions on Etsy password. So that's all standard normal permissions there. Let's go ahead and check everything that's running as root. PSAUX, pipe that to grep-i, grep for root, -- color is equal to auto. Okay, cool. So we have everything here running as root. So what we're going to do is take a look at everything down through these square brackets or these system brackets and see what's running. VMware, more VMware, WPA, so there's that ACPIT, cron. Perhaps we could look into cron with, pspy 32. Look at all, or pspy 64. These are some of my favorite tools, man, because it looks at all I/O operations that we need to be concerned with. So those are very useful tools if you want to try those out. I believe I linked to them on my blog, in my Linux PrivS guide. But definitely wants to check out there. I'm not seeing too much. It doesn't look too promising. Wayland, nothing too exotic here. Let's netstat-tunnelp. Anything off of 127 that we wouldn't have been able to see from the outside? 631 cups, absolutely. 3306 MySQL, we already entered into that. And it looks like perhaps something here off of 43623, which could warrant further investigation. And then 53 domain. So nothing of too much value there. Maybe something of value though that we might want to look into. So with that being said, let's continue our enumeration. Let's go back to the root file system. Let's look at var mail. Doesn't look like there's any mail here. Let's go ahead and check for any suids and guids that might exist. Suids, I'm going to copy that over. And I'm just looking to see if there's anything exotic here. Arping, wget. Okay, so we do have something here. let's let this finish. Let's definitely let this finish and just kind of see what comes out and shakes loose. So we also have CP. That's the copy command, which would be running as root. I don't know any other way to put that, but you could copy a file as root. So what we're going to do in that particular case is we're going to go to our directory that we like to live out of. We could also, by the way, if we wanted to get a little practice with our kernel and kernel payload enumeration gathering, we'd run file on bin bash, uname-a, cat etc *release, and we'd be well in the good there if we wanted to go ahead and do any of that. But let's continue with our suids. We saw that copy is equal to a suid binary here. So we're going to touch the password, we're going to touch the password file of our own. And what I'm going to do is cat the etc password that exists. Sure enough, it looks like there was somebody here before us, a hacker. Well, we're going to subtract that from the list. And we're going to go ahead and copy this. And yep, there's our password file is www.data. We're going to make our own password file. We're going to nano that. I'm going to paste in everything. And then I have a little command called Linux post with a convenient etc password, which is pre-generated off of my local machine with the password that I know equals iHeartHacking. I used OpenSSL to generate that. Certainly could look into that for extracurricular activity. But we're going to go ahead and paste that at the bottom. What I'm saying is make me as a valid user on this machine with root level privilege, with the password of iHeartHacking, and give me, to home siren, execute bin bash. We're going to control X, yes to save, and let's take a look at it and make sure everything is good. Awesome. There I am. Now remember that CP command that was running. The copy command is running as root. It's a suid, set user ID binary. We're going to copy the password file from this directory with root privileges to etc password and just blatantly overwrite it, quite frankly. Let's cat etc password. And there we are at the bottom. Siren. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and switch user to Siren. Type in iHeartHacking. And we have root on the target machine. Wonderful. So we've completely compromised this machine. Let's go to the root directory. List out everything. We would cat our proof.txt. Then we'd type ifconfig. We'd type hostname, ID, and I hit shift print screen on my keyboard. I would go ahead and snapshot this as evidence and proof for my formal report. I'll save that and save that. Cool. So we have root on the target machine, and we've learned quite a lot. What are some takeaways? Let's go to our notes real quick. I would say a takeaway concept of this is using the correct tool for the job. In this instance, we found WordPress. Let's use WP scan and enumerate out users, plugins, and themes verbosely. The next thing we want to do is be aware of the WP content /uploads directory, and be aware of WP content /plugins. And this would be either a fuzz or a brute forcing attempt with WP scan. But that is where that's how we found the vulnerable plugin there. That's how we got in. The next was a simple file upload vulnerability. So having a pre-existing simple CMD or command web shell at the ready is always useful. The next thing is checking SUIDs and GUIDs. And that's going to pretty much, just being thorough with those SUIDs and GUID checks again and again. I do have some good news for next week. The good news for the next coming week machine is that we've been greenlit to go ahead and do 2 machines from PG Practice. When I say we, I mean I have been greenlit to do 2 machines for you guys from PG Practice. And because I've gotten so many requests, S1REN, can you do a Windows machine? Pretty much look forward to a Windows machine walkthrough coming up in the next week. I want to reiterate that this is the official Offensive Security YouTube channel. And because of that, we can greenlight ourselves to demonstrate the PG Practice machines, but by no means should you go ahead and record or do walkthroughs of your own for PG Practice. PG Play is what we're doing because that's our public free platform, but PG Practice is something that I've been working with some of my colleagues for many months to get greenlit to do 1 or 2 Windows machines. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to pull up, let's go ahead and pull up offensivesecurity.com/events. And you'll be able to check out all of our latest events here, on-demand events, community events, and again, we're keeping this one here, the EXP312 course, or Mac OS Control Bypass, which is just super awesome, and you can go ahead and watch that on demand. So, with no further ado, I am going to just pause this here. And what I want to say is thank you guys very much for all of the kind words. Thank you for all of the support. You've been absolutely incredible, and I will keep putting these out there for the community, to bolster the community, to grow the community, and to help maybe some students on the side see how one such individual at Offensive Security, their methodology, how they might go about single target machines kind of concurrently. And again, just thank you guys for the kind words. I'll catch you next week. Over and out.